Hello everyone, my name is John Bussard. I'm an HPE Business Transformation Center engineer for Ingram Micro. I help support HPE servers, blade systems, storage, as well as Aruba networking technology solutions. In my videos, what I like to do is show you a slide from a popular PowerPoint and then demonstrate to you what that means within a management context. Today we're going to start off our series on HPE's Morpheus VM Essentials software. So this has certainly fit a niche within the market, right, that VMware and Broadcom have created with the changes that they've had. And what I will say is this software has the features and functionality that most people need within virtualized environments. Now, when I talk about this solution, I'm going to talk about the solution from a VMware administrator's perspective, because I've been a VMware administrator for a very, very long time. I started out on ESX 2.0, and I got my VCP on vSphere 3. All right, so I'm certainly I'm going to explain these technologies because I think a lot of you out there are in the same boat of looking for virtualization alternatives that are out there and are maybe considering this solution. Now, what I do like about the solution, like I'd mentioned, it has the basics that you need within a virtualized environment. So things like live migration of virtual machines between different hosts without any downtime, if you will, the vMotion alternative. It also has high availability, or HA. So if a host fails, all those virtual machines are going to power up on other hosts within the environment or within the cluster. It also has load balancing of virtual machines. So we'll move virtual machines around between different hosts based on demand or requirements of the environment. If you will, it's a DRS alternative or distributed resource scheduler alternative. There's also live migration of the virtual machine storage or hard drives between different storage platforms. Again, if you will, the storage vMotion alternative. So this has the basics of what people look for within a virtual environment. It has snapshots. Obviously, you can create virtual machines with different operating systems and then as well. All right, so this has all the features. Now, this solution is based off open source technology, but it gives you the ease of deployment of this solution. So the management interface on this is the Morpheus management interface. And if you've used Morpheus Platform Ops or what we call Morpheus Enterprise today, the management interface will look very familiar. Now, Morpheus Enterprise will really manage your world. Right, so it can manage multiple different types of hypervisors out there, private as well as public cloud options, right? And also be able to allow you to do automation tasks, events, all those solutions. Now, Morpheus VM Essentials is a subset of those solutions. You can manage both VMware as well as VM Essentials environment through one management interface. Now, the underpinnings of this solution are based on KVM or open source type of solutions, so certainly KVM's there. Open vSwitch, QEMU, VirtIO, CoreSync, as well as Pacemaker are technologies, and certainly you could download those and deploy those yourselves. But if you've done anything with open source, getting those all to work together in a cohesive fashion can be challenging at times. And this kind of settles that deployment option for you and gives you a management interface that's been around for a long time. So not only has the KVM or the open source tools been around, but also the management interface has been around for a long time. So in this video, what I plan to do is just give you the basics of how to manage this environment. I'm going to save some of the more advanced features for other videos. Right, again, this is just to get our heads wrapped around the interface. So with all that being said, let's explore this management context. All right, here we are within the VM Essentials Manager. If you will, you could compare this to vCenter. Just as vCenter is your central management plane into your virtualized environment, this will become your central management plane into your virtualized environment with this platform as well. All right, as a matter of fact, it is a virtual machine. If I go under provisioning here and select incidences, we'll see the incident that contains that virtual machine right here. Now, one of the nice things I like about this solution is I don't need to purchase new hardware, right, to place this on. They support going back to Gen 9 servers as well as third-party servers. They've started introducing that. Now, this also will integrate in with shared storage, and that's something I haven't seen alternative hypervisor solutions do it well. So you could bring certainly iSCSI, you could certainly bring NFS, you could certainly bring fiber channel storage solutions into this environment. And as long as they're on the compatibility list, you shouldn't have any issues at all. All right, so I mentioned incidences. Let's talk a little bit about an incident. Maybe we'll scroll down. These are actually my virtual machines that are running in there, or the incidents that contain my virtual machines. If I select this virtual machine here, all right, we'll open that up. We could see the incident and then the incident name. If I scroll down a little bit, we could see the virtual machine name down here. All right, so it's unfortunate that the virtual machine name has the same name as the incident. Now, an incident is meant to manage multiples of items at the same time or cohesively in the environment. If we think about the larger VM Essentials solution, so there is an upgrade opportunity for that for you, but the larger the larger Morpheus Enterprise solution, maybe you're managing a bunch of containers inside the environment. You might want to have those underneath an incident. All right, but here we go. We've got our incident. This is our virtual machine. If I select that, all right, we can go over here, and now we can see that we're at a compute and a virtual machine level. But at both levels, I do get access to a console into this virtual machine. So if I select this console, I can click over here, and you can see that I can log into this guy if you want me to. All right, so I can interact with this system. All right, and you can see that I can open this up. And I apologize for the console resolution. I could size this down, but I thought it was the best resolution I could do where you could see these menu items easy, as you can see the console itself. The reason why I bring up incidents is because it is something that's different from VMware. If I go up here, if I select my actions, you can see the actions I get at a virtual machine level as opposed to the incident level. All right, there are different options at the incident level, namely cloning, backup, as well as snapshots. All right, so this does include an integrated backup solution that you can back up off, platform if you want to. So let's talk a little bit about some of these items that are going across the top here. We'll move over to library. So library, I've got automation as well as virtual images. So if you notice, when I select the menu item, the menu kind of opens sideways over here as well. So automation, our automation tasks I might want to perform in the environment, I could certainly schedule those. Yeah, if I click add, we could certainly give it a name. You can see I have options for PowerShell scripts as well as shell scripts inside Linux. All right, and I put my code down here. Also in the library, we will see virtual images. And you can see I've got ISOs listed up here as well as a VMDK file. Now, the open source virtualization hard drive format is going to be a QCOW2, so I do have the ability to import those as well. Now, this can exist on platform, but this could also exist externally inside the environment, which brings me over to infrastructure. Infrastructure are items that are available into the entire environment and are not necessarily dedicated to a cluster. For example, you might create a volume and present that to a cluster, put your virtual machines on it, but I wouldn't want you to think in this context on that. So especially with storage, and we'll talk a little bit about storage down here. So first, groups. Again, if you can see, we open up that menu sideways. So groups, this is where you're going to do user rights, assign those to different groups. Clouds, these would be your management interfaces that you're going to work with. Again, in a larger Morpheus Enterprise product, that would be public and private clouds. That would be different hypervisor formats. In this solution, we support the VM Essentials package as well as VMware vCenter. All right, so this would be the management for this platform here, and this would be another vCenter incident that exists. And this is where I'd go to add additional vCenter servers if I wanted to manage them inside this environment. All right, other pieces, the clusters. So there is my VM Essentials cluster. We are using Ceph. Right, you don't have to, but there is a software-defined storage inside this environment. It's based on the open source technology Ceph. If you will, this again is your vSAN alternative. All right, again, infrastructure, we'll go to compute. So these will be my hypervisors. We can see I've got 2 VMware servers here, and I've got 3 VM Essentials hosts over here. All right, network. All right, this is where my VLANs. Some people will say that this networking in this acts a lot like a VMware distributed switch. What I'll say is that if you create a VLAN inside this environment, it'll get spread across all the hosts within the infrastructure. It's pretty easy. You just go over here, select OVS port group, all right? Select the group you want to associate it to, the cloud you'd want to associate it to, and then you just go down here and put a VLAN ID in. All right, next, we'll jump down to trust. So trust is going to be a trust store where you could add credentials or key pairs, so you don't have to give somebody those credentials to get into an environment. They could just call that from this store. Next, we'll go back to storage. So storage I want to think of as an infrastructure level. So for example, if I wanted to do a backup to an S3 repository, I could certainly do that or set that up within this environment. All right, with my infrastructure, I have an NFS share that exists that I've added, and if I edit that, you'll see I'm using it as my default backup target as well as my default image store, and that's where I'm selecting placing those ISOs or where I'll put my virtual machine templates. Right, but I do have a variety of options that I can do. Again, this is storage. This is not going to be storage for your virtual machines. This will be storage for your backup entities as well as your image libraries. Go back over to provisioning. Let's go to incidences, and let's create a virtual machine inside this environment. All right, so I'm going to click Add. All right, I could certainly deploy to a VMware environment if I wanted to, but I'm going to use VM Essentials. I'm going to click Next. Again, our group for our rights, the cloud we want to attach it to, and then the incident name, and I'm going to just call this Ingram Micro. I'm going to click Next. More often than not in this environment, when you create an incident, it'll contain a single virtual machine inside of it. Plan, these are kind of your serving suggestions for how you want to set up your CPU and memory. And I'm just going to do this right here for CPU and 32 gigs. I'm going to do a Windows install, so this will be a little tight. I could create other plans if I wanted to. You know, I could do crazy things. I could do a single CPU with 1 terabyte of RAM if I wanted to. But again, these are here by default. We'll use that for now. My resource pool, what hard drive size I want to use, and then where I want to place it. I'm going to place this one on my software-defined storage. But again, if you had shared storage, iSCSI Fiber Channel, you could add that on in. Your easiest path for shared storage is going to be the Electra MP, but I'm going to save that discussion for another video. We're going to select the network. All right, and I'm going to select an image. Let's see, we will do Windows 2025. We could select the host if we wanted to. Now in a Linux environment, I could move forward this. I could click Next, right, where I'm going to get a task screen, and then Next where I'll get a summary screen. All right, that is because QEMU hardware and the drivers that are associated with it, which are VirtIO drivers, are pretty much within every distribution of Linux that's kind of out there, kind of built into the kernel. As a matter of fact, I'd be hard-pressed to find a distribution that wouldn't have that built in. But Windows does not have the VirtIO drivers installed. So when you get to the point where it's going to ask you for a hard drive, you're going to get nothing inside that environment, and you're going to have to select the disk. So what they do for Windows is if you go under Advanced Options and you scroll down, you're going to see attach VirtIO drivers. So this will take the ISO and attach it to the system, and when you get to that spot where I ask you for a hard drive, it'll either automatically detect the hard drive, or you're just going to look inside the disk and fish that driver out. So I'm going to click Next. Here's where I can do some automation tasks. I'm going to click Next again. Here's my summary, and I'm going to click Complete. Now we can see here we get a little rocket status for this virtual machine. All right, there's a few different places I could get information about the deployment process. I could select the virtual machine. Again, we're at an incident level. We could see that happening over here. If I go up top here, we could see that listed up top. If I scroll down to history, we could see the information down here. All right, and I can see the steps that it's going through. All right, I could also go into the virtual machine itself. Select that. All right, and again, I can go over to history, get that information. Pretty much the same information I got at the incident. I can even go over to operations, and we started off at the dashboard, right? But underneath here we've got activity. And if I go to history here, we can also see that deployment is happening as well. So I'm going to go back to provisioning, incidences. Right now there's going to be some spots within this environment where I'm going to fast forward this deployment a little bit, so just pay attention to that. Obviously we don't need to see a complete Windows install. Right now I'm just waiting for this to turn green and give me a green arrow. Alright, here we go, it's ready to roll. So I can select that virtual machine, we can go over to console, and again we'll see this machine booting in. Alright, here we are at the spot where we're going to select the language. I'm going to click Next. Obviously my keyword's USA. I'm going to install Windows Server. We don't have a product key. And I don't know, we'll do 2025 Data Center with the desktop experience. I'll click Next. Alright, we'll accept the agreement. And this is pretty typical stuff for a Windows install. Now it's automatically detected the hard drive because I do have that ISO mounted, but if I do load driver here, right, and I do browse, we will see there's the Windows disk that's been mounted, and there's the VirtIO drivers that have been mounted. Right, and what I would do is, if it didn't detect it, I'd go down VIO SCSI, right, and I go down to my operating system, or my version of my operating system, and grab this guy in output. But we're not going to do that. Since it's already detected the disk, we're just going to click Next. Alright, and then we're going to install. And like I had mentioned, I'm going to fast forward this a little bit so you don't have to see things that you've probably already seen before. Alright, here we are booting up. Alright, so we're at the spot. It's going to ask us for our product key. Again, we're going to do this later. I'm going to stop in a password. Click Finish. And then we're going to go log in. And I'll put in the password we just created. And we'll accept this. I'll wait for Server Manage to come up, and I'm going to close that on out. And I'll scroll up and we'll close these prompts. Now, just as within VMware, at this point you install VMware tools. There is a tools that you need to install. It'll be the QEMU guest agent, as well as the rest of the drivers that are needed. If I open up this folder here, alright, I'm going to go to this PC, and we will see again the Windows disk as well as this VirtIO ISO. So if I scroll down here near the bottom, we'll see two different files. This will be the MSI file. You can use either one depending on your operating system. And then this will be the executable. So let's run the executable. We're going to agree and install. Click Next. And accept the terms. Next again, and here's all the drivers. It's going to drop in there. I'm going to do an install. Now, expect the screen will flicker a little bit because it's got to install the splice drivers, which helps the video. Now, this is a Windows system. With Linux, what I would do is for example, you're going to use your package manager within Linux to deploy this. And for example, for Ubuntu, it would be sudo apt install qemu-guest-agent. And you run that through and pull it through the repository. We can see the guest agent. Everything's been installed correctly. All right, we'll close this on out. And at this point, I would take this and clone this to the library if I wanted to have a template to use. Something that I will want to do is, and you won't find it at the virtual machine level, you'll have to go to the incident level. Just like with VMware, you want to eject the CD-ROM, otherwise vMotion and things like that fail, so we're going to eject that. Another thing that you're going to want to do is install the Morpheus agent on the system. And that's pretty easy. You're just going to go back into the virtual machine itself, go under Actions, and then install agent. All right, and if it doesn't work for one reason or another, you could download the agent. It'll be a PowerShell script inside for Windows, and it'll be a shell script for a Linux distribution. But if I refresh here, we will see that we are upgrading. All right, and when it's done, all right, we'll grab another virtual machine. We'll look at it real quick. When it's done, you should see something like this show up down here. You should see the agent version, the IP addresses, and things like that should show up. So again, this is just the basic management of this environment. What I will say is that this solution definitely gives you all the features and functionality that people need for their virtualized environment. The cost is reasonable on this as well. It's not sold per core, it's sold per socket on a motherboard, so whether you have one core all the way up to, I think the most recent is 192 cores on a processor, it'll cost you one license. And the MSRP for that subscription, I should say, is $600 per year. It also includes support as well, and that's MSRP pricing, so we all know how that goes. So I hope this gives you the basics. Certainly we're going to have more videos that are wrapped around this, but I hope you enjoyed this video, and please stay tuned for more videos.